The world changed forever on a quiet Tuesday morning. The skies above New York City darkened as massive alien ships descended from space, their sleek metallic surfaces glinting ominously in the sunlight. People stopped in their tracks, staring upward with a mix of awe and terror. At first, no one knew what to think. Were they here to help? To explore? Or was this something far more dangerous? Ethan Cole stood on the rooftop of a government building in Washington, D.C., watching live footage of the event unfold on a tablet. A naval officer in his early 30s, Ethan had always been calm under pressure, but even he felt a chill run down his spine. The alien ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Massive, hovering structures that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They loomed over cities, oceans, and forests like silent watchers, their intentions unclear. It didn't take long for those intentions to become horrifyingly clear. Without warning, beams of blinding energy shot out from the ships, striking coastal towns and military bases. Explosions erupted across the globe, sending shockwaves through populations already reeling from fear. Entire neighborhoods vanished in an instant, replaced by craters filled with smoke and fire. Panic spread faster than anyone could react. In the chaos, Ethan's phone buzzed urgently. It was Claire Bennett, an old friend from college and now a leading oceanographer. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Ethan, are you seeing this? We need to talk. There's something I've been working on. It might be our only chance." Claire's words caught Ethan off guard. He trusted her completely, but he couldn't imagine how anything she'd been studying could possibly matter in the face of such destruction. Still, he agreed to meet her at the Pentagon, where emergency meetings were being held around the clock. When they finally came face to face, Claire looked exhausted but determined. She carried a folder stuffed with papers and photos, which she spread out on the table between them. "I'd spent years researching ancient civilizations," she began, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Specifically, ones connected to underwater ruins. Off the coast of Florida, there are submerged structures that date back thousands of years. And inside some of these ruins, we found blueprints, advanced designs for machines that look like submarines, but they're far beyond anything humans should have been capable of building back then." Ethan frowned, leaning closer to examine the images. The sketches showed sleek, futuristic vessels equipped with strange propulsion systems and weapons he couldn't begin to understand. "You're saying these things actually exist?" he asked skeptically. Claire nodded. "I think so, if we can find one. And get it working, we might stand a chance against whatever is happening up there." She pointed to the sky, where the alien ships continued to hover menacingly. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. The idea sounded insane, almost laughable. But then again, so did the sight of alien invaders obliterating entire cities without explanation. Humanity was losing badly, and desperate times called for desperate measures. Finally, he sighed and looked at Claire. "All right," he said. "Let's do it. But if this goes sideways, I'm blaming you." A faint smile crossed Claire's face, though her eyes remained serious. "Deal," she replied. Little did either of them know, their decision would set into motion a chain of events that would change the course of history, not just for Earth, but for every living being in the galaxy. The next morning, Ethan and Claire found themselves in a small conference room at the Pentagon. The air was thick with tension as military leaders debated their next move. Outside, the world continued to burn. Reports of alien attacks streamed in nonstop, each one worse than the last. Coastal cities were being wiped off the map, and naval forces that tried to fight back were quickly overwhelmed by the invaders' superior technology. Ethan cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "We need to act fast," he said firmly. "Claire has an idea that might give us an edge." He gestured for her to speak, and she stood up, clutching the folder of research she brought with her. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady. "As I mentioned earlier, there are ancient structures underwater off the coast of Florida." Claire began. These aren't just ruins. They're evidence of a civilization far more advanced than we realized. Among the artifacts we discovered are designs for submarines. These vessels were built using technology we can't fully understand yet, but if we can recover one and get it operational, it could be our best shot against the aliens. One of the generals leaned forward, his expression skeptical. You're asking us to gamble on something that may not even exist. We don't have time for wild theories. It's not a theory, Claire insisted. We've already mapped out potential locations for these submarines based on sonar scans and historical data. If we send a team down there, we might find exactly what we need. After a long pause, Ethan spoke up. We don't have many options left. Our ships are getting destroyed before they can even fire a shot. If there's even a chance this could work, we have to try. His words carried weight, and after some grumbling, the room fell silent. The decision was made. They would launch an expedition to locate the ancient submarine. By nightfall, a small team had been assembled. Alongside Ethan and Claire were two others who would prove crucial to the mission. First was Ryan Mitchell, a marine engineer known for his ability to fix anything mechanical. With grease-stained hands and a no-nonsense attitude, Ryan was the kind of person you wanted around when things went wrong. The second member was Grace Harper, an experienced submarine pilot whose calm demeanor masked nerves of steel. Together, they formed an unlikely crew bound by desperation and hope. The journey to the dive site took hours. They boarded a research vessel equipped with cutting-edge sonar equipment and descended into the waters near the Bermuda Triangle. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the waves, the team prepared for the dive. Claire briefed them one last time, pointing to a map marked with coordinates. This is where we believe the submarine is buried, she explained. It's deep, so we'll need to move carefully. Grace piloted the submersible craft toward the designated area, while Ryan monitored the instruments. Ethan sat quietly, watching the dark water press against the glass. It felt surreal, diving into such depths while the fate of the world hung in the balance. After nearly an hour, the sonar picked up something unusual, a large, oblong shape partially buried under layers of coral and sediment. There, Claire exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. That has to be it. Grace maneuvered the submersible closer, shining powerful lights onto the object. What they saw left them speechless. The structure was unmistakably man-made, or at least created by intelligent beings. Its sleek design hinted at incredible speed and agility, though much of it was covered in centuries of ocean growth. Carefully, they deployed robotic arms to clear away the debris, revealing smooth metal panels etched with intricate patterns. As they worked, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were uncovering something monumental, not just a relic of the past, but a key to humanity's survival. But as the submarine slowly emerged from its watery grave, none of them realized the dangers lurking nearby, or how drastically their lives were about to change. The team worked late into the night, their excitement growing with every passing moment. The ancient submarine was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its metal surface gleamed faintly even after centuries underwater, and the strange symbols etched into its hull seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Ethan ran his hand over the smooth surface, marveling at how advanced it felt. It wasn't just a machine, it was a masterpiece. "This is incredible," Claire whispered, her voice filled with awe. She held up a flashlight, pointing out the intricate carvings that covered the vessel. "These patterns, they're not decorative. I think they're instructions, some kind of guide on how to operate it." Ryan crouched beside her, inspecting the markings closely. "If that's true, we'll need time to figure them out. And time is something we don't have." His tone was grim, but his eyes sparkled with determination. He loved a challenge, and this was the biggest one he'd ever faced. Grace, who had been quietly observing from the submersible's cockpit, spoke up. "We should bring it to the surface before anything else. If those aliens catch wind of what we're doing down here, we're sitting ducks." Ethan nodded in agreement. "She's right. Let's get it onto the research vessel and take it back to the lab. We can study it there safely, or as safely as possible, anyway. With great care, the team attached cables to the submarine and began the slow process of hauling it upward. The water pressure made the task difficult, and the tension aboard the ship was palpable. Every groan of the winch and splash of displaced water felt like an eternity. Finally, after hours of effort, the submarine broke the surface, glistening in the moonlight like a ghost risen from the deep. Back at the secret research facility, the real work began. The submarine was placed in a massive tank designed to simulate its natural underwater environment, while the team examined it further. Claire spent hours poring over the symbols, sketching diagrams, and cross-referencing them with ancient texts she had studied during her research. Ryan tinkered with the mechanical components, trying to understand how the propulsion system worked. Meanwhile, Ethan coordinated with military leaders, keeping them informed of their progress and managing their growing impatience. Grace took charge of testing the submarine's controls. Sitting inside the narrow cockpit, she ran her fingers over the unfamiliar buttons and levers. "It's strange," she muttered to herself. "This thing feels alive, like it's waiting for something." Her words proved prophetic. Late one night, as Ryan adjusted a panel near the engine compartment, a soft hum filled the air. At first, no one noticed. It was so faint it could have been imagined. But then the hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls of the lab. Lights flickered, and the submarine began to glow with a pale blue light. "What's happening?" Ethan shouted, rushing into the room. The others gathered around, wide-eyed and unsure. "I didn't do anything," Ryan insisted, holding up his hands defensively. "It just turned on." Claire stepped forward, her heart racing. "Look," she said, pointing to the control panel. Symbols on the dashboard lit up, shifting and rearranging themselves into patterns she recognized. "It's responding to us. It knows we're here." The realization hit them all at once. This wasn't just a relic of the past. It was intelligent, designed to awaken when touched by human hands. For a moment, they stood in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they had uncovered. But their amazement was short-lived. Seconds later, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights flashed as technicians scrambled to make sense of the sudden surge in energy readings. Outside, drones patrolling the skies detected the disturbance and changed course, heading straight for the lab. "They found us," Ethan yelled, grabbing a nearby tablet to check the radar. Sure enough, alien ships were closing in fast. "We need to move," Grace shouted, climbing into the submarine. "If this thing really works, now's the time to find out." Without hesitation, the team sprang into action. There was no time to waste. Their discovery had put a target on their backs, and the aliens weren't going to let them escape without a fight. As the first explosion rocked the facility, Ethan gave the order, "Get it in the water." Now, the team moved with frantic urgency, their hearts pounding as the sound of distant explosions echoed through the facility. Alien ships were closing in fast, their weapons already tearing apart the outer defenses of the lab. The submarine, still glowing faintly with that mysterious blue light, was their only hope now. Ethan barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. "Ryan, get the tank drained. Grace, prep the controls," he shouted, his eyes darting between the radar display and the submarine. "Claire, stay close. I need you to guide us if anything goes wrong." Ryan sprinted to the control panel for the massive water tank, his fingers flying over buttons. Within moments, the water began draining rapidly, revealing the sleek hull of the ancient vessel beneath. Grace climbed into the cockpit once more, her hands gripping the unfamiliar controls. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. This was it, the moment they would find out if the submarine could actually work. As soon as the tank was empty, Ethan and Claire rushed to join Grace inside the cramped cabin. Ryan stayed behind just long enough to ensure the submarine systems were stable before leaping aboard at the last second. With everyone strapped in, Grace activated what she guessed was the ignition system. To everyone's relief, the hum grew louder, and the lights on the dashboard flared to life. "Okay," Grace said, her voice tight with focus. "Here goes nothing." She pressed a lever forward cautiously, and the submarine responded instantly. It shot out of the lab through an emergency exit tunnel designed for underwater vehicles, plunging into the dark ocean beyond. Behind them, the research facility erupted in flames as alien drones unleashed their full fury. But the team didn't look back. They couldn't afford to. Once submerged, the submarine seemed to come alive in ways none of them could have predicted. The glowing symbols on the dashboard shifted again, forming patterns that Claire quickly recognized from her studies. "It's showing us how to use it," she exclaimed, pointing to one section of the controls. "That must be the propulsion system, and these." She tapped another set of symbols. "These are weapons." Ethan leaned closer, his brow furrowed. "Weapons? Are you sure?" "I'm almost positive," Claire replied. "This thing wasn't built just to explore, it was made to defend." Grace tested the controls carefully, guiding the submarine deeper into the ocean. The water around them shimmered with bioluminescent creatures disturbed by their sudden arrival. For a few precious minutes, they felt safe, hidden beneath the waves. But then, the sonar system pinged sharply, alerting them to movement nearby. "We've got company," Ryan said grimly, staring at the screen. A shadowy shape loomed in the distance, a small alien scout ship, its jagged silhouette unmistakable, even in the dim light. Ethan clenched his fists. "Can we take it?" Grace hesitated, glancing at the weapon controls. "I don't know. We've never used this thing in combat before." "We don't have a choice," Ethan snapped. "If we run, they'll chase us, and they'll figure out what we've got. We need to fight." Taking a deep breath, Grace adjusted the controls, aiming the submarine directly at the alien craft. The enemy ship fired first, sending a bolt of energy streaking past them. Everyone braced for impact, but Grace maneuvered the submarine with surprising agility, dodging the attack effortlessly. "Now," Ethan shouted. Grace pressed the trigger marked by the glowing symbol. A burst of blue energy shot out from the front of the submarine, striking the alien ship dead center. There was a flash of light, and the enemy vessel shuddered violently before breaking apart into pieces. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Then Ryan let out a whoop of triumph. "We did it. We actually did it." Claire stared at the wreckage in disbelief. "This changes everything. If one submarine can do this, imagine what an entire fleet could accomplish." Ethan nodded slowly, his mind racing. They had proven the ancient machine worked, but this was only the beginning. The aliens wouldn't stop coming, and humanity needed more than just one miracle to survive. As Grace guided the submarine towards safer waters, Ethan turned to Claire. "We need to find the others. All of them." And for the first time since the invasion began, there was a flicker of hope. News of the submarine's success spread quickly, carried by encrypted messages sent from Ethan's team to military leaders around the world. At first, many were skeptical. How could an ancient machine, pulled from the ocean floor, stand a chance against the advanced alien invaders? But video footage of the battle told a different story. The glowing blue energy blast that destroyed the alien scout ship was undeniable proof. Humanity had found a weapon capable of fighting back. The revelation sparked a global effort unlike anything seen before. Governments set aside their differences and pooled resources to locate more of the ancient submarines. Teams of scientists, engineers, and divers fanned out across every continent, searching for clues in underwater ruins, forgotten archives, and remote archaeological sites. Claire became the face of the operation, guiding expeditions with her extensive knowledge of ancient civilizations. Her research pointed to several potential locations where similar vessels might be buried, hidden beneath centuries of sediment and coral. Ethan, meanwhile, focused on training new recruits to operate the mysterious machines. He knew that finding the submarines was only half the battle. They needed skilled pilots and engineers to make them work. Grace took charge of this effort, teaching eager volunteers how to navigate the complex controls of the Aegis, as they had named their first vessel. Ryan spent long hours reverse engineering its systems, piecing together makeshift manuals based on trial and error. The process was slow and frustrating, but each small breakthrough brought them closer to building a fleet. As weeks passed, the team uncovered 2 more submarines, though neither was in perfect condition. One, discovered off the coast of Japan, required extensive repairs to its propulsion system. The other, found buried in the Mediterranean Sea, had damage to its weapons array. Despite these challenges, the engineers worked tirelessly, determined to bring both vessels up to operational standards. By the time they succeeded, humanity's forces had grown significantly stronger, but so had the aliens. Reports indicated that the invaders were preparing for a massive assault, gathering their ships into a terrifying armada. Their target, Earth's remaining population centers, particularly coastal cities still holding out against the onslaught. Intelligence suggested the attack would come within days, leaving humanity little time to prepare. The pressure weighed heavily on everyone involved, but Ethan refused to let despair take hold. "We've got 3 submarines now," he reminded his team during a tense strategy meeting. "That's 3 chances to hit them hard where it hurts, in the water. They think they own the oceans, but we're about to show them otherwise." To maximize their chances, Ethan devised a bold plan. The submarines would split up, striking key points along the alien fleet's perimeter. Each vessel would focus on disabling enemy ships and creating chaos, buying time for conventional forces to regroup and counterattack. It was a risky strategy, relying heavily on untested technology and inexperienced crews, but no one argued. They all knew what was at stake. On the eve of the battle, the crew gathered aboard the Aegis for a final briefing. Sam Carter, a former Navy SEAL who had joined the mission after proving himself in training, stood beside Ethan. His sharp eyes scanned the faces of the recruits, many of whom looked nervous but resolute. "This isn't just about winning," Sam said firmly. "It's about showing those bastards that we won't go down without a fight." Grace nodded, her hands resting on the control panel. "And we've got the tools to do it. These submarines are our shields and our swords." When the meeting ended, Ethan stepped outside to clear his head. The night sky was eerily quiet, the stars obscured by the looming alien ships overhead. He thought about everything they had been through: the discovery of the Aegis, the battles fought, the lives lost. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. If they could pull this off, if they could turn the tide even slightly, it might be enough to save humanity. But deep down, he knew the real test was yet to come. The aliens wouldn't retreat easily, and the upcoming battle would push them all to their limits. As he returned to the submarine, readying himself for what lay ahead, Ethan whispered a silent promise. They would not fail. Not now. Not when the entire world was counting on them. The day of the battle arrived, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The 3 submarines, Aegis, Tempest, and Guardian, moved silently through the dark waters, their glowing symbols casting faint light on the ocean floor below. Each vessel carried a mix of experienced crew members and newly trained recruits, all united by a single purpose: to strike back against the alien invaders. Ethan stood in the cockpit of the Aegis, his eyes fixed on the sonar display. Ahead of them, the alien fleet loomed like a wall of steel and shadow, stretching farther than the eye could see. Their massive ships floated ominously just beneath the surface, their jagged designs resembling predatory creatures ready to strike. Ethan clenched his fists as he studied their positions. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. "Everyone knows their roles," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Stick to the plan. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't let them corner you." Grace nodded from her seat at the controls, her hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Beside her, Claire monitored the weapons systems, ensuring everything was functioning properly. Ryan stayed near the engine compartment, ready to make adjustments if anything went wrong. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone who depended on them. As the submarines approached the enemy perimeter, the first wave of alien drones descended into the water. Sleek and silent, they moved with unnatural speed, scanning the depths for intruders. Grace maneuvered the Aegis deftly, weaving between rock formations and avoiding detection. The other two submarines followed suit, maintaining perfect formation as they closed in on their targets. Then came the signal. Sam Carter's voice crackled over the comm system. "Tempest is in position, ready to engage." "Guardian here," chimed another pilot. "We're locked and loaded." "Aegis copies," Ethan replied. "On my mark. Now." With that, the attack began. The Aegis surged forward, its weapons blazing with bursts of blue energy. One of the alien ships exploded in a shower of debris, sending shockwaves rippling through the water. The sudden assault caught the invaders off guard, creating chaos among their ranks. The other submarines capitalized on the confusion, striking key points along the fleet's outer defenses. For a brief moment, it seemed like the humans might actually gain the upper hand. But the aliens quickly regrouped, unleashing a barrage of counterattacks. Energy beams sliced through the water, narrowly missing the Aegis as Grace pulled it into a sharp dive. Explosions lit up the darkness, shaking the submarine violently. "Shields are holding, for now," Claire reported, her voice strained. "But we can't take much more of this." "We need to disable their command ship," Ethan said, his mind racing. "It's controlling the drones. Take it out, and the rest will fall apart." Grace adjusted course, heading deeper into enemy territory. The others followed, drawing fire away from the civilian evacuation efforts happening above. Every second felt like an eternity as they dodged attacks and returned fire. The Tempest took heavy damage, forcing Sam to retreat temporarily, but the Guardian stepped up to cover their flank. Finally, they reached the heart of the alien fleet, a colossal mothership bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller escort vessels. It was heavily guarded, but Ethan knew they had no choice. "This is it," he said. "All units, focus your fire here." The submarines unleashed everything they had, targeting the mothership's vulnerable points. The Aegis fired repeatedly, its energy blasts piercing the hull and causing internal explosions. The aliens responded with overwhelming force, swarming the submarines with drones and missiles. For a terrifying moment, it looked like the humans might be overwhelmed. But then, something unexpected happened. As the mothership sustained critical damage, its control over the fleet faltered. Drones froze mid-motion, their lights flickering before going dark. Smaller ships drifted aimlessly, their systems disrupted by the loss of the central command. "We did it," Ryan shouted, relief breaking through his exhaustion. "Not yet," Ethan reminded him, his gaze still locked on the chaos around them. "We've dealt a blow, but there's still work to do." Though battered and bruised, the team pressed on, knowing the fight wasn't over. But for the first time since the invasion began, humanity had proven it could stand toe-to-toe with the invaders and win. The victory over the alien mothership was a turning point, but it came at a cost. The Aegis limped back to base with severe damage to its hull, while the Tempest and Guardian required extensive repairs before they could be deployed again. The crew was exhausted, their bodies bruised and their minds heavy with the weight of what they had endured. Yet, despite the scars, both visible and invisible, they allowed themselves a moment to breathe. For the first time in weeks, there was a flicker of hope. Ethan stood on the deck of the research facility, staring out at the horizon as the sun dipped below the waves. The ocean shimmered in hues of orange and pink, a stark contrast to the destruction that still lingered in the world above. Behind him, Claire approached quietly, her arms crossed against the cool evening breeze. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "We've made progress," she said softly, "but this isn't over. They'll come back stronger next time." Ethan nodded without looking at her. "I know, But we've proven something important, that we can fight them. That's more than anyone thought possible a month ago. Claire stepped closer, her expression thoughtful. There's something else I've been thinking about. These submarines, they weren't just built to defend. They were part of something bigger, a global network designed to protect Earth from threats like this. Ethan turned to face her, his brow furrowing. What are you saying? I'm saying there might be more out there. Not just submarines, but other technologies. Weapons, shields, maybe even energy sources we haven't discovered yet. If we can find them, we might stand a real chance. Her words sparked a fire in Ethan. He had spent so much time focused on surviving the next battle that he hadn't considered the bigger picture. If Claire was right, and she usually was, then humanity wasn't fighting this war alone. The ancient civilization that created the submarines had prepared for an invasion like this, leaving behind tools to help future generations survive. The next morning, Ethan called a meeting with the team. Grace, Ryan, Sam, and several others gathered in the makeshift command center, their faces etched with fatigue, but also determination. Ethan wasted no time getting to the point. Claire believes there's more out there, he began. Not just submarines, but other pieces of technology hidden around the world. Our job is to find them before the aliens do. Grace raised her hand slightly, her tone cautious. How do we even start? We barely had enough resources to find the submarines, and now you're talking about searching the entire planet. It won't be easy, Ethan admitted, but we have clues. Claire's research points to specific locations tied to ancient myths and legends, places like Mount Shasta in California, the Giza Plateau in Egypt, and the Nazca Lines in Peru. If we focus our efforts there, we might uncover something useful. Ryan leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. You think these places are connected to the submarines? They have to be, Claire interjected. Every civilization leaves traces of its existence. These sites aren't random. They're markers, guides to finding what we need. Sam crossed his arms, nodding slowly. All right, so we split into teams and hit these locations one by one. But we'll need reinforcements, more pilots, engineers, and ground support. And we'll need to move fast. The aliens aren't going to sit around waiting for us to catch up. Ethan agreed. Within days, new teams were assembled, each tasked with exploring a different site. Some traveled to remote jungles, others to desolate deserts, and a few ventured deep underground into forgotten caverns. Communication between groups was spotty at best, but every discovery brought them closer to understanding the full scope of the ancient defense system. One team, led by Grace, uncovered a strange device buried beneath the sands of Egypt. It pulsed with the same blue energy as the submarines, emitting signals that seemed to interact with the vessel's systems. Another group found ruins in South America containing detailed carvings depicting battles between humans and extraterrestrial beings. The images were eerily similar to the current invasion. As the pieces began to fall into place, Ethan realized they were dealing with something far greater than they had imagined. This wasn't just about winning a war. It was about uncovering a legacy left behind by their ancestors, a legacy meant to ensure humanity's survival. But with each new discovery came fresh dangers. The aliens were watching, learning, and adapting. They knew humanity had found a way to fight back, and they wouldn't stop until every trace of the ancient technology was destroyed or claimed for themselves. The underwater battle began with a deafening roar that seemed to shake the entire ocean. Humanity's newly formed fleet of ancient submarines surged forward, their glowing hulls slicing through the dark waters like ghostly predators. Leading the charge was the Aegis, piloted by Grace Harper with Ethan Cole and Claire Bennett on board. Behind them came the Tempest, Guardian, and several other vessels recovered from distant corners of the globe. Each submarine carried a mix of experienced crew members and fresh recruits, all united by one goal: to protect Earth. The aliens had anticipated the attack. Their massive warships loomed in the depths, surrounded by swarms of drones designed to overwhelm any opposition. As the human fleet approached, Beams of alien energy lanced through the water, lighting up the darkness with bursts of green light. The submarines dodged and weaved, their agility surprising even those who operated them. Grace pushed the Aegis into a sharp dive, narrowly avoiding a blast that shattered nearby rocks into fragments. "We can't keep running," Ethan said, gripping the edge of his seat. "We need to hit them hard." Claire nodded, her fingers flying over the weapon controls. "Target their drone clusters first. If we thin out their numbers, we'll have a better chance against the bigger ships." Grace obeyed, guiding the Aegis toward a group of drones circling one of the alien warships. With precise aim, she fired a burst of blue energy, obliterating 2 drones instantly. The others scattered, but not before Sam Carter's team and the Tempest joined the fray, taking out another cluster with a well-placed shot. Despite their early successes, the fight was far from easy. The alien warships unleashed devastating barrages of energy, forcing the submarines to split up and regroup constantly. Ryan Mitchell, stationed near the engine compartment of the Aegis, worked tirelessly to keep the vessel operational as it absorbed hit after hit. Sparks flew from damaged panels, and alarms blared throughout the cabin, but he refused to give up. "Shields are down to 20%. Claire shouted, her voice tight with urgency. "We can't take much more of this." "Hold on," Grace yelled back, banking the Aegis sharply to avoid another attack. She guided the submarine behind a jagged rock formation, giving the crew a moment to catch their breath. Ethan glanced at the sonar display, his jaw tightening. Their command ship is still intact. It's coordinating everything. We need to disable it. "But how?" Grace asked, her eyes scanning the chaotic battlefield. "It's too heavily guarded." "We'll create a diversion," Ethan replied, already formulating a plan. "Sam, do you copy?" Sam's voice crackled over the comm system, loud and clear. "What do you need?" "I'm sending coordinates for a full assault on their left flank. Draw their attention there while we go after the command ship." "Got it," Sam responded. "Good luck." As the Tempest and Guardian launched a coordinated strike, drawing waves of drones and fire away from the central warship, the Aegis slipped through the chaos unnoticed. Grace navigated with expert precision, bringing the submarine within striking distance of the alien command ship. Its massive bulk loomed above them, bristling with weapons and glowing faintly with an eerie light. "This is it," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "One shot. Make it count." Grace steadied her hands, lining up the Aegis directly beneath the command ship's vulnerable underbelly. Claire activated the weapon systems, channeling every ounce of power into a single concentrated blast. The blue energy surged forward, piercing the alien vessel's hull with a deafening explosion. The command ship shuddered violently, its lights flickering before going dark. For a moment, silence fell over the battlefield. Then, as if sensing the loss of their leader, the remaining alien ships began retreating, disappearing into the depths as quickly as they had come. Back aboard the Aegis, the crew let out a collective sigh of relief. They had done it. They had turned the tide. But as Ethan looked at the battered fleet and the wreckage floating around them, he knew the war was far from over. The aliens would return, angrier and more determined than ever. And when they did, humanity would need to be ready.